Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential, chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. Today, I have a very special guest by the name of Dan Faggella. You probably haven't heard of him. He's kind of been this underground email marketing ninja. What I love about Dan's story is he actually just went from being a jiu-jitsu student, someone that was really passionate about jiu-jitsu, and then his studio closed down. And instead of just finding another studio, he said, heck, I'm going to open my own. And that kind of led him on a very entrepreneurial path to learn marketing. And so we'll talk about why learn marketing and how to kind of ground yourself in learning skill sets that can gain you longevity in every business. We'll talk a lot about that. We'll also look at martial arts and its effect on becoming a strong entrepreneur, how to create killer email messaging for your first 2 weeks autoresponder, and then the Black Lambo test, which is an amazing distinction, and we'll show you how to learn copywriting without knowing anything. So buckle up. Here's this energy-packed interview with Dan Faggella. Today's guest, we're probably going to be all over the map, I have a feeling, you and I, Dan. But we're going to start really talking about some email marketing tactics, copywriting tactics, and then at the end, we're probably going to geek out on some otherworldly stuff. But Dan Faggella, welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast.
Ilan, good to be here, brother. Pumped to be here.
Awesome. So before we kick this off, I know our listeners always love to hear a little bit about your background, where you came from, how you got started, and you actually have some pretty interesting stories on how you landed in the online marketing world.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it wasn't an easy trajectory. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to college now. I'll become a digital marketer. Yeah, for me, basically, Ilan, I started off as a martial artist, right? Just a competitive jiu-jitsu guy. So my ears are all messed up if I didn't have long hair. A competitive jiu-jitsu guy training. I wanted to just train and fight all day and, do takedowns and throw people around. And the gym I was training at shut down. And that meant I either had to drive an hour every day or I had to start my own gym. And when you don't understand business, you think business is like, you don't think it's a big deal. So you're just like, yeah, I'll start a gym, that's all good. So started a gym, then realized that, rent and sales processes were all an important thing. And I was in a town of 8,000 people, Ilan. So that meant even if I was number one in Google, you're only going to have so many human leads in a town that small. There's only so many humans. You're going to run out of them, which is a really bad place to start a martial arts gym, actually. Anybody out there, if you're thinking about starting a martial arts gym, I would find a lot of humans.
Take a look how many humans are in your
look at your human radius and sort of take a gander there. So anyway, it didn't end up being the end of the world, though, because what I had to turn my focus to was not how can I own search, which is a great skill. It's just not my skill. My skill was how can I take every lead and follow up with them in the most tailored way possible to get an appointment and get them through the front door. And if they don't sign up, how can I have automatic campaigns to call, email, and trigger them with some kind of an action step to be able to yank them back into the gym for another appointment and try to get another sale? So we did that for the martial arts gym. I grew that to 80-something students or so and sold it a few years ago. And by that same time, we were making more money using the same email marketing skills, or I was making more money using the same email marketing skills, selling jiu-jitsu products on the internet. So I was in a small town. We were growing at a decent pace. I was like, man, there's more jiu-jitsu guys on the internet than there are in my freaking tiny town. Yeah. So we started using that I got very neurotic about follow-up, Ilan. I got very neurotic about subject lines, about tailoring my sequences to work. And when we scaled that to the thousands and thousands of people that are interested in jiu-jitsu on the internet, we started making sales. And that thing ended up going from zero to more than 50 grand a month after 2 years. And that thing's still cooking along. We're working in multiple niches. I'm looking to actually sell that business and get into kind of emerging technology. But so I didn't get into digital marketing by studying Facebook courses and saying, I'm a digital marketer. It's like I had to work my nads off to sell my first business and to scale my second e-commerce business. Now we've worked with CLV Boost since I founded the consultancy, getting a new digital business around the world. So a lot of experience in a lot of businesses with CLV Boost as a consultancy, which is I only started consulting after we were breaking, $40 grand a month in e-commerce, and I'd sold my first business. Only then did we start saying, okay, I'll apply email marketing to your business too. It started off as just being a guy trying to pursue my own passion and realizing that real digital relationships, owning a really relevant messaging was the only way I was going to be able to make a living, do the stuff that I liked. And I realized that was a skill that could scale elsewhere. So didn't want to be a marketer, but it happened anyway, man.
Brilliant. How old were you when you decided to open this gym?
Yeah, I had, I wasn't even yet 21. I don't think. I think I was 21.
So how did you decide at that point? Because a lot of people will be like, okay, I'm going to start a offline business, right? But they never think that they need to go and do this online marketing, right? Like if I started a gym in a small town, what I would think is, I'm going to walk around and hand flyers. I'm going to go in restaurants and shops and et cetera, and see if I can stick some stuff on your wall. Why did you decide to go online?
I'll tell you, there's a couple reasons. Number one, I wanted to build a skill set that would scale to the large companies that I know I eventually am here to build. And I figured that flyers wasn't really the way. But I did all the grunt work, right? So, I sold face to face. I walked around campus in between taking classes. I was just an undergraduate kid. In between taking classes, I would just tap random dudes this is not a joke, man. I spent a whole year. This is like one of the main ways we make money. I would just tap random guys on the shoulder and say, hey, you ever watch the UFC? And they'd be like, yeah, a couple times. I'd be like, oh, cool, man. Yeah, blah, blah. And I had a whole kind of 4-phase pitch to get a phone number to book them for a free class for jiu-jitsu. And I spent, 18 months doing that, plus flyers and all that. But I realized that the core skill set, what I wanted to get best at, I'd be able to use to grow an e-commerce business, to grow, to drive revenue for a service business like we have a physical therapy chain in the United Kingdom that we work with in the email. We have startup businesses selling kind of newfangled, cool marketing solutions out of MIT that we're working with. I wanted skills that I knew would really be able to scale. So I did the grunt work. But for me, man, I wanted to go digital because I wanted skills that would apply across the board to driving revenue, no matter what damn business I'm doing.
And I just want to point that out to everyone listening, how smart what Dan just said is. Most people focus on the immediate, right? And the immediate, he still did it. He still hustled for the immediate. But that is such a good question to ask. Whenever you're building anything, it's what skill set could I learn? What thing could I focus on for the next 2, 3, 5 years to master that has longevity? That if this business does not work, I can still replicate what I'm learning here in business 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And, at the age of 21, the fact that you even had that kind of long vision is just astounding to me.
Well, it's not that astounding. Yeah, but either way, I'm glad I did, because otherwise I would have been stuck in flyer land and I'd still have a, $18,000 a month little hokey poke martial arts gym, and that's all I'd have. So thank goodness I had the idea, but I had good coaches around me to poke and prod me in that direction too. So
nice.
I got to give you credit.
And I did some quick math. You actually closed 1% of your 8,000 person population. So that's pretty
good. We had some surrounding towns too. So I joke a little bit about it, but ultimately, yeah, our core town was, if they were all from that one town, it'd be like 1% of them getting closed for martial arts, man.
Amazing.
It was a grind.
So you start learning about email marketing. You obviously set up a automated sequence to, bring people in through a process. So now that you're doing this for other people, okay, let's assume that I come to you and I'm someone that is looking for consulting in this area, as some of these listeners might be.
For sure.
What are we looking for? What's a business that you'd like to work with? Who can you work with? Does this work for everybody?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of an idea of some of the initial questions that I'd ask across the board. Someone's like, I got a business. Could I make money with emails?
Why did we go all Southern hick on this?
I don't know. I have no idea. I really don't get that many calls from Mississippi, but whatever that guy was. So yeah, it's like if somebody just came up to me randomly on the street, right? Or if somebody hits me up after a speaking engagement, or they listen to, Entrepreneur on Fire, and they just shoot off an email. The questions on my end are, what are we getting for initial traffic right now? So are we getting a lot of people to land on your page? What are we getting for, what do we have for an existing list size? So now most of the folks that I'll work with initially are getting into email marketing, and they want to set up initial systems. But some people, they have a list, thousands of people, and honestly, they're not doing anything in a tested or regimented way in order to get phone calls or to get e-commerce purchases. Anybody that we work with, we have software clients that'll just want engagement, like they don't want to sell again, they just want to keep the person hooked in the software. Generally, though, most clients is going to be, we want e-com purchase or we want the phone to ring. So if you have an existing list, then I want to know, how big is your list, and what do we got to work with there? In addition to that, what's the price point of what we're working with, and what are all the various offerings you have? If you're selling like one doohickey, it's like a $12 or something. We're going to have to focus a lot more on sort of how many emails we can drive through the door. If I want to show up on your bottom line and say, "Yep, we worked with you. There it is. Thanks." You can count the bucks now. Then I need to focus on volume and traffic for you. If your prices are high, then we might be able to focus a little bit less on traffic and put a lot more detail into the automation and the follow-up, because we really want to close those high ticket sales. Yeah. And they're just going to involve a little bit of a different approach. So how much traffic are we getting? How big is our existing list? If I know those, then I have something immediately to work with. But the other side of Ilan, for folks that really are getting a business off the ground, is what do we have already built? I'll tell you, one of the biggest problems I run into in doing email marketing consulting is I got to fix Frankensteins. So somebody built out like crazy email, like auto thing that they had a course almost on it, and like it almost does something. And we got to like disassemble that whole shebang. Starting a business from scratch, to know while you're buying traffic, while you're building this business, you have an automated system that knocks out the emails. That's another one. So your existing traffic, your existing list, but what are your ultimate big picture visions and goals? What do you want to sell first, second, and third? And if you don't have that set in automation yet, let's build out that skeleton so that every new visitor, every new opt-in is running through our best customer lifetime sequence that we can. So people with a newer business, we really emphasize, hey, do we have a skeleton yet? Because if we don't have much of one, let's build one that's killer and it's going to scale to the freaking moon. Nice. So it's a little bit of that.
And do you guys, you're obviously in a lot of different niches and a lot of different segments.
Yeah.
Do you find that there's some sort of, I hate this phrase of like one fits all, because there isn't, but are there things that you've seen now being in multiple niches that just fundamentally work in those niches, like across the board?
There are. I think if I'm gonna sort of be like a liar, like tactic guy, I'd be like, man, there's this one cool email trick. Ultimately what applies across the board, and it's sort of like anything. It's like in jiu-jitsu, right? I was a martial arts guy, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, did the black belt and all the competing and messed up my ears. Like there are cool moves that you can definitely use. But ultimately they're sort of based on like tenets and principles you sort of have to understand in your game. So if I was going to talk about some fundamentals that across the board in various spaces would apply, they would be more principle based. One of which would be you're having your autoresponder. And this is just like, man, I don't care what you're selling and I don't care how you're selling it. You can think through this lens and have a more fruitful autoresponder. What is, if I'm opting in and I'm on whatever this list is, and we can talk about segmentation of lists for days, but let's say you have a list and you're selling a product.
Yeah.
If I opt in, what is the one or two biggest reasons that I would buy if I could? What are the motivational buttons? What's the problems that are getting solved? What are the feelings I desire for this? What are the biggest reasons I would buy? And what are the biggest reasons I wouldn't? And are you in that first week or two of automated messaging? Some people in the internet marketing space be really aggressive automated messaging. Some people more of a consultative sale. It's going to be, one email every 3 or 4 days, more professional, more thought leadership angle. But regardless, whether you're going light or whether you're going hard, are you addressing immediately in your first week, your first 2 weeks, are you hitting hard on the biggest benefits that would get them to take the next step forward, and talking them out of or counteracting the biggest objections that they wouldn't. So for example, Ilan, let's say, you guys do work with traffic generation, whatever else. If somebody, is really tentative about a Facebook course, let's say, you're selling a course about how to work Facebook paid advertising. Maybe one of the biggest concerns, and ultimately the way you find this out is you call your buyers or you call the people who clicked but didn't buy, or you talk to people at conferences. You aim to get real deal data. But let's say you figure out, how ultimately, I know Facebook is always changing and I'm afraid that this course just isn't keeping up. Or Facebook takes a lot of money to be able to buy traffic. I know that. And to be honest, my budget is only blank. So I know I'm going to spend X on this course, but if I got to spend $2,000 this month to test it, it's not the month for me. So let's say those are your two biggest objections. The two biggest reasons are, you find out most of the people with an interest in your course are, you could either guess randomly or you could be intelligent and ask them. You call the buyers up. I call buyers. I mean, anytime, like we work with somebody with $1 million run rate, like financial software business. And we're like, if somebody's an expert at financial trading already, or if they're a newbie, what's the biggest reason that they actually keep paying you, $250 a month for years? They're like, I don't really know. We never talked to them really. I mean, we answer support emails. It was like, whoa, like in terms of encouraging retention, we have to know that. In terms of closing sales, we have to know that. So figure out those biggest pluses. Let's say for you, Ilan, let's say these are people who, the biggest reason that they want Facebook traffic is because they're starting a new online business. So these are new entrepreneurs, and most of them are selling e-commerce. So they want to see e-commerce. They want to see Facebook money spent. They don't really want the phone to ring. You find that 90% of them, they want to get the buy button push from Facebook landing pages. And these are guys fresh, new to business. Well, now we know the illustrious benefits here are going to be get your new business off the ground, make that e-commerce, cash register ring. We got to hammer on that. And we also have to tell them about our updates to the product so that they don't think that we're outdated. We have to tell them that we have testing methodologies where even if you only have a budget of $400 a month, we still have a testing plan for you to be able to figure out which landing pages are best. So even if you're on a limited budget, so the question is, do you know what the biggest objections and the biggest benefits are for people to either step forward or step away from what you're trying to freaking sell them? Most people will answer no. Figure that out. Number two, are you communicating that systematically and in a convincing manner across that first 1 or 2 weeks of email? So I could say, Ilan, hey, you know what? There's, you want to send your first email like 6 hours after they opt in, and that's like a special tactic. It's like, I don't know, man, I could test all kinds of stuff from Kingdom Come, but ultimately, if you know your marketing fundamentals as I just articulated them, and if you have them implemented in your initial 2 weeks, hard and steady, focusing on the most important factors, across the board, that's how we eke out the dollars. It's not the magic tactic. It's having those dialed in. So I don't care if you're selling on the phone or in e-com. If you wanted something that applies across the board, that's going to apply across niches. That's an exercise. I don't care who you are. If you're listening in right now, take yourself through that because that's going to help you.
Brilliant. And I love that you said that because even when we teach Facebook, it's the same thing. Everyone's like, let me learn this latest craze. I'm like, that craze, the way it's changing, that's going to be gone in a month.
Yeah.
If you don't know the fundamentals, you don't understand, like you said, the human psychology, the things that no matter what happen, people are still affected by certain language. People are affected by wanting, what we were just talking about, fear of loss or the ultimate gain. So I love that you brought that to it. You also started mentioning a lot of stuff in there that were kind of intertwined, both which were sales tactics, things like sales, it sounded like you learned, and also copywriting.
Yeah, big time of copywriting for sure.
So when you started out, let's kind of break this down because there's probably people out there who are going, email marketing, I have no idea where to start.
Yeah, great. And I learned the hard way, so I'm excited to the learning curves.
What were some things that you did or some things that you practiced, maybe books, maybe whatever, that you got a ton of value from that could really change the game for these people?
Yeah. One of the biggest ones for me, Ilan, and I've mentioned this in some previous interviews, and I think I have a blog on this or related to this on clvboost.com as well. But I talk about what I call the Black Lambo test. So the Black Lambo test is, maybe you've heard this, right? But the Black Lambo test is who is selling almost what you're selling almost to the same people and in somewhat of a similar way. Like, I'm not talking about like, oh, but our pizzas are like, vegan. It's like, I don't give a shit. Like, who's selling pizzas and making money, man?
Yeah.
Who's selling them, delivery like you are, who's selling kind of what you're selling, pretty much the same people, pretty much the same way. Just figure that out, collect those people, collect them all. And then ask yourself, who could purchase a black Lamborghini this week with just the money that they make from this business? Now, that will make you pluck out 98% of the people you just put on the table in terms of people that do something similar to you. And you have left the people that make what we commonly refer to as ducats. So these are people who are able to bring in swaths of dollars doing something that you're doing. So what I like to do when I started my internet marketing business, and I'm always running multiple bits. So I'm doing speaking, I'm doing the consultancy, and we're growing the e-commerce. So I'm always juggling a little bit too much. But in order to kind of get it up to where we want to get it to about $1 million run rate before I sell it, because I want to get a good price, obviously, the whole process has been modeling. My eyeballs have not been on the latest blog on marketingland.com or whatever. I like Pat Flynn was super duper nice guy. I was on a show. I like him a lot, but it's not like just the latest thing he posted.
Yeah.
What I do is I say, who is doing direct response marketing in the fitness and martial arts space and is making 8 figures a year? Who's doing that? What does their marketing look like? What are their order forms, their sales pages, their emails look like? What is their email frequency? What are their subject lines? What kind of copy are they using? I to the people making ducats in your space. If you're starting a consultancy selling video marketing services, guess what? The Black Lamborghini test works for you too. There's somebody selling either marketing or specifically video marketing with a 20-person team, bringing in millions and millions of dollars, killing it with their proposal process, killing it with generating leads online, killing it with referral systems. And you should and could be modeling that. So for email marketing, Ilan, what I did is I said, what are the landing pages, the squeeze pages, the sales pages, and importantly, the email copy, the layouts, the calls to action that the guys who are making, $30 million a year are sending out to their email list. I'm not saying it's flawless. I'm not saying I can't improve upon it. I'm not saying I can't learn. But if I'm going to start anywhere, I start there. And Ilan, the way I learned copywriting, and man, I'm passionate about this. Like, I tell everybody this. If you want to learn email copywriting, test and model other people's work. So there's an old school way of learning copywriting, the classic like Dan Kennedy. If you study copywriting for its own sake, you get to like the Dan Kennedys and the Gary Halberts and all the old school, deified copywriters, John Carlton's and all those guys. And the old school way is, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, I've just never done it. You take a sales letter, one of these sales letters just killed it back in the old days, like these classic direct response, masterpiece sales letters, and you write it out by hand, ingraining that same copy, that same feel, flavor, describing benefits, describing objections. You drill that into your mind. I didn't do that because, call me lazy, but I don't think I was lazy because I don't sleep a lot, and I work a bunch. Is I just want to get something done while I was doing that. So I would take I would say, okay, this guy's making $30 million a year, and 60% of his sales are from this sales page. Okay, this is in my niche. I'm going to look at the structure of this sales page. I'm going to model his headline. How does his headline look like for my fitness product, though? Not his. How can I rewrite it? I want to use the same hook. I want to use the same angle. I want to use the same length of a headline, but how can I kind of retweak it? No copy and paste. A complete rewriting, taking what is a brick of their sales copy and making it a brick of yours. Same thing with email. You get their first 7 emails. I moved into the self-defense niche. There's guys making millions in self-defense. I looked at what are their first 7, 14 emails look like? How are they gauging education versus straight offer? I looked at that cadence. I looked at their calls to action. I looked at words they use like brutal, fight enders, like these like kind of manly, gritty words that seem
specialized terms. Specialized
terms that really were clicking in the brains of that audience. And the way I learned copy was I moved into a niche. I found who could drive a black Lambo. And I literally said, okay, well, my first swing at marketing, I'm not saying I'm going to stop, but my first swing is modeling methodically the people who are making money. And that got my bearings for copy. And if you're moving into any niche, I don't care who's listening. If you're writing emails and you want to sell your consulting services, you want to sell your coaching services, you want to sell digital courses and products, which is something that I do. And at CLV Boost, we have guys doing, 10, 30 grand a month, selling everything from wrestling to fitness, et cetera, all kinds of digital products. That's my world. No matter what you're trying to sell, find out who's crushing it, and make your first copy a really nice revamp, a really nice brain dump of your product into their template. And that will teach you copy while producing an end result at the same time. I know that was long-winded, Ilan.
No, that's great.
For me, that taught me copy, period.
Yeah, I had a very, very similar experience. We came out with our first product. We're like, oh shit, now we need to come up with a video sales letter. We've never done one. What does it look like? And I remember I just went to the top guys in our field at that time. I watched about 10 of these video sales letters. After a while, you just start seeing a pattern. You know, like you said, this brick followed by this brick, followed by this brick.
Yep.
So I literally sat down, I transcribed. I mean, this was back in the day. I had to sit there and transcribe this video. And then I just kind of did the same thing. I put our language and our product into their process. You know, and like you said, first swing, you already have something that 99% chance is going to be somewhat successful.
Good enough, yeah.
Because it's already proven. So you're going to start making money. I think what we've come to now is you get to a point where you're attracting customers based on your perspective and your voice.
Yeah.
And it becomes very critical, I think, for people to at some point learn and step away from what everyone necessarily tells you, like, do it this way, because there is no this way. You've been to seminars where someone's like, if you all write your email copy this way, you're all going to be millionaires in 6 months. And you, even knowing email, will go out and do it and be like, well, I didn't get shit results. Because there's a lot of other stuff that these people are doing that you just they can't bottle and give to you. Yeah. But I totally agree that for anyone starting out, and this goes for anything, if you want to figure out good ads to write on Facebook, do the same thing. You want to figure out good ads on Google, do the same thing. Like, figure out who's crushing it. And I love this line: steal smart.
Steal smart, man. I like to hearken to biographies of folks. And Bonaparte said, in his journal, he said to be a great general, read over and over the campaigns of Hannibal, of Caesar, of Frederick the Great, of Alexander. And he, Napoleon didn't like wake up and then know how to like take over Europe. It didn't really work out like that. Like, he knew who the best people in history were, and he was on that. He was not reading like the newfangled kind of theoretical. He was like, who's taken over most of the world thus far? And then what do I got to do? So it's that, like you had said, it applies across the board. But for learning email copy, I highly recommend doing your homework as to the biggest players and doing what we call modeling or stealing smart to start, because that will blend good copy into your brain and give you a nice template to start with. So in terms of learning copy off the bat, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and you also pointed out, which I don't want to kind of like throw under there, which is, when you're doing this, get onto people's list. Go through their customer experience. If you're in a niche, like you said, and you're selling jiu-jitsu products or something like that, you're going to want to go through that whole process that the person has, see what the way they take a customer through a process, and note everything, what you like, what you don't like, what you would do differently, etc. You'll start seeing, after you do this 2-3 times, there's a very consistent pattern and a methodology that people take people through. And it's like that because it's tried and true, and it just works. So you can go and make your own clever marketing wheel, or you can actually use the one that works and get results and then tweak and hone from there.
Yeah, exactly. Step into your own creativity once you have your bearings. But the quickest way to get your bearings is to find success and just copy it. So
yeah, I'm sure it's the same thing with martial arts, right? Like they have to teach you fundamentals, then you can get creative and find your own way of doing things, right?
That's it, man. I mean, it's completely it. It's completely the same in martial arts, and it's the same thing with modeling. I'll tell you, okay, modeling specific. So I didn't go out and say, okay, I want to have $1 million run rate e-commerce business after I moved to MIT campus, and then I want to sell that and get into, investing in emerging technology. I didn't say like, okay, well, who's the company that's making a lot? Oh, Deloitte. I'll look at Deloitte's emails. No, I didn't do that. Deloitte does make a lot of money, but Deloitte isn't in my game. In the martial arts world, I said, I didn't say, I'm competing in jiu-jitsu, I'm going to watch the taekwondo guys. No, I said, who's another lightweight Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy? Who are the guys like under 140 pounds in Brazilian jiu-jitsu that are the biggest killing machines. Not the guys that are 250 pounds, because I can't do the same takedowns. I don't have the same strength and power. Who are the people like me that have gotten the results like I want to get in the way that I want to get them? And what are the moves they're using? What are the submissions they're using? What are the takedowns they're using? And my whole drilling strategy, my whole technique repertoire was built off of high percentage, high frequency techniques from the best in the world at my weight class. I applied the exact same modeling principles to training martial arts. And I attribute that to a lot of the trophies that I got for that stuff too. It's just like, I don't even take the credit, man. It's like I was watching the best guys. I was just copying them, you know?
Brilliant. So really smart. I love that. It's so funny. You're, I think, the second or third person that I've actually interviewed that was a very high level martial artist. One guy was actually a very high level bodybuilder. And what I've realized in interviewing you guys is the level of discipline and working on fundamentals that you guys have transfers to business so well. I have a 3.5-year-old that right now in my brain, I'm just going, I have to put him into some sort of martial art because it's amazing the tools that it gives you for real life, not just, hey, let me go take down this guy. I mean, half the things you've said, I'm like, you've just been programmed from a very young age to think and view the world a certain way. And it's paying dividends right now in everything that you do. It's incredible.
Yeah, there's something to be said of it. You know, I wouldn't tell anybody like, oh, well, if you want to be successful in business, you got to
No.
But at the same time, I would say that, you know, it was a fulfilling activity for me. It was a way of life. It was way more fun to, you know, pay for graduate school by fighting than by working or something like getting selling insurance, something boring. I'd rather like teach people how to throw people around. But yeah, no, there's certainly lessons around, you know, rigor and sort of being able to embrace the grind that ultimately you gotta sort of suck up when you're doing business too. You know, and the thing about martial arts too is that like when you've been punched like straight in your face, it's not, or choked unconscious or something like that, you know, like speaking engagements or calling people on the phone or like getting a spam complaint, like isn't quite as like threatening just because you have some perspective on getting hit in your mouth.
Yeah.
So I think that there's that definitely transferred a little bit, but yeah, there's nothing like the fundamentals. And I think
there's a great line in Fight Club, which is my favorite movie of all time, where he goes, after you've been in a fight, the rest of life goes on mute, or like the volume gets turned down. It's almost, you know, what you were saying, like you get punched in the face and almost everything else is like, yeah, I handled that. I mean, the rest is
And honestly, I don't even think I'm a tough guy, to be frank with you, Ilan. Like I really don't. You know, I think that tough guys are like, you know, people that, you know, had to charge the ramparts with bayonets. You know what I mean? Like, or like see people get blown. I mean, that's real tough guy. So I go perspective wise, I always go the farthest reaches. You know, and so I don't really think that like, oh, well, I'm so tough because I've been through so much. Heck no, man. It's just, I like to bear perspective in mind. And I think if we're aware of our perspective, we can kind of laugh at the pettiness of many of our trifling, you know, fears and just sort of get over them and move forward with business.
Brilliant. Yeah. So I figured we'd stop right there and pause it and start part 2 when we actually delve deeper into list segmentation and things like that. But I just love this black Lambo test. And I love the fact that when people start, they're always confused about what to do and how to do it. And I've said time and time again, and I love that Dan brought this up, focus on stealing smart. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. There are people out there doing what you want to do at a very high level and are paying millions of dollars to teams to create that marketing effort for them. So if you just go and kind of reverse engineer, look from the top and reverse engineer and start building brick by brick, like Dan was mentioning, you can have a massive jumpstart in whatever it is you're doing. So I hope part 1 has been massively helpful to you guys. Part 2, like I said, we're really going to delve into list segmentations, how to segment your list, what questions to ask yourself when you're segmenting your list. So I'm sure it'll be very, very valuable. So until we meet again, have an amazing, amazing day, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.
Did you run through doors till you hit the floor? Did you read my